Rita Hayworth's beauty was so overwhelming, so explosive, that it literally ended up painted on the side of the first atomic bomb. Her face wasn't just famous, it was weaponized symbolism. In 1946, one single performance detonated her career, transforming her into Hollywood's ultimate love goddess overnight. She went from rising star to untouchable icon, pulling in paychecks worth millions today and catching the attention of princes, power players, and the entire world. But while audiences fell hard for every slow glance and every toss of her fiery auburn hair, something darker was quietly unfolding behind the scenes. Gilda. Because the woman the world adored wasn't the woman who woke up every morning. Born Margarita Cancino, Rita Hayworth was slowly being erased by the very image that made her famous. The spotlight was blinding, and instead of illuminating her life, it swallowed her whole. Her story proves a brutal truth. Even Hollywood's brightest lights can't chase away inner darkness. Sometimes the most flawless images hide the deepest pain, and in 1946, as theater lights dimmed across America, Rita's private world was already unraveling. Audiences practically stopped breathing during Gilda. When Rita performed her legendary number, Put the Blame on Mame, history was made in real time. With one glove peel and one controlled flip of her auburn hair, she redefined movie screen sensuality for an entire generation. It wasn't loud or crude, it was calculated, smooth, and devastatingly effective. Her presence was so magnetic that servicemen famously plastered her image onto the atomic bomb tested at Bikini Atoll, turning her into a strange mix of desire, power, and wartime myth. At the absolute peak of her fame, Rita Hayworth wasn't just another movie star, she was a full-blown phenomenon. Her face dominated Time and Life magazine covers, her red hair and glowing smile becoming the very definition of Hollywood glamour. So when she married Prince Ali Khan in 1949, it felt almost inevitable. Royalty didn't elevate her image, it simply matched it. The love goddess had officially stepped into real-world royalty. The world watched in disbelief as the daughter of a Spanish dancer crossed into elite global society. Her wedding to Prince Ali Khan was pure spectacle, with thousands lining the streets of Cannes just to catch a glimpse of her. The ceremony at the prince's chateau overflowed with champagne fountains, diamonds, and a guest list stacked with international power players. It looked like a fairy tale ripped straight from a movie reel. But behind the glossy surface of Hollywood's most desired woman was someone deeply haunted. The screen siren persona made crowds swoon, but the real Rita Hayworth was painfully shy and emotionally scarred. She never truly escaped the trauma of her early life, and fame only buried it deeper. Columbia Pictures didn't just polish her image, they engineered it. Her name was changed from Margarita Carmen Cancino, her hairline painfully altered through electrolysis, and her natural dark hair dyed that now legendary shade of auburn. Every detail was calculated, every inch controlled. And yet, the talent was real. When she danced with Fred Astaire in You Were Never Lovelier, he openly called her his favorite partner after Ginger Rogers. Her performances in Gilda and The Lady from Shanghai proved she was far more than a pretty face. At her peak, Rita Hayworth earned $250,000 per film, over $3 million today. But the cost of becoming a legend was far higher than any paycheck. Even at the absolute peak of Rita Hayworth's fame, the people closest to her could see the cracks forming beneath the polish. The same hands that looked so elegant holding a cigarette on screen often shook when the cameras stopped rolling. Off-camera, nerves were calmed with increasingly frequent drinks, quiet moments no one photographed. Her legendary beauty, praised by millions, slowly became a gilded cage, trapping her inside a persona she never fully claimed as her own. Hollywood had no idea its love goddess was carrying secrets heavy enough to break her spirit. Secrets rooted not in fame, but long before it. Secrets that would quietly shape her relationships, her career, and her fragile sense of self. Long before the red carpets and movie premieres, there was a very different stage. In the sweltering heat of Tijuana's border nightclubs during the early 1930s, a young Margarita Carmen Cancino performed night after night. The year was 1931, and her father, Eduardo Cancino, had discovered a loophole by crossing into Mexico, where enforcement of labor rules was far more relaxed. On these makeshift stages, his firm presence guided every movement, every step, every turn. To avoid uncomfortable questions about her age, Eduardo introduced Margarita as his wife, a chilling detail that hinted at a deeply troubling situation. This wasn't ambition, it was exploitation hiding in plain sight. Margarita's childhood was shaped by pressure, control, and expectations far beyond what any child should carry. Born on October 17, 1918 in Brooklyn, New York, Margarita was the eldest child of Eduardo, a Spanish-born flamenco dancer, and Rita Hayworth, a former Ziegfeld performer. From the moment she could walk, her father fixated on turning her into the next link in his family's dance legacy. By age 3, she was already learning complex routines, drilled with adult-level intensity. The training was relentless. Eduardo converted their basement into a full-time dance studio where Margarita practiced for hours every day. Mistakes weren't tolerated, and exhaustion was ignored. Success didn't bring rest. It only meant tougher routines, longer rehearsals, and higher expectations. Her childhood wasn't just shortened, it was completely reshaped around performance. By the age of 5, Margarita appeared on Broadway in the Greenwich Village Follies, sacrificing school and normal routines for the stage. Education became optional, while dancing became mandatory. By 12, she was pulled out of school entirely to tour the punishing vaudeville circuit with the family act. Her mother, possibly shaped by her own complicated history in show business, made limited attempts to shield her daughter. When home, she stayed close, even sharing sleeping arrangements in an effort to provide some sense of safety. But overall, she remained a quiet witness to a situation spiraling beyond control. The touring circuit proved profitable, especially in border towns where Spanish-themed acts drew late-night crowds. Eduardo dressed Margarita in costumes meant to attract attention far beyond her years, pushing the act further to satisfy demand. The performances became increasingly uncomfortable, blurring lines that should never have been crossed. Behind the music, sequins, and applause lay a darker reality. Those familiar with the family later revealed that Eduardo's control over his daughter extended far beyond choreography. The emotional damage inflicted during these years carved deep scars into Margarita's psyche, wounds that money, fame, and admiration would never fully heal. To survive, Margarita learned to emotionally detach from herself, a coping mechanism that would later help her endure Hollywood's own ruthless system. In a tragic twist, the very skill that protected her as a child also helped mold the screen goddess the world would one day worship. And somehow, even through all that darkness, her natural talent continued to shine. Her grace and beauty didn't go unnoticed for long. Casino patrons stopped mid-conversation when she stepped on stage, and entertainment insiders leaned forward in their seats. Even as a young teenager, Margarita had that rare, unexplainable pull, the kind that makes every eye in the room lock in without effort. It was a spark that couldn't be taught or forced, and it was only a matter of time before Hollywood came calling. But that discovery, like so many moments in her life, came with a cost she wouldn't fully understand until years later. Rita Hayworth would later say she had been dancing for her life since the age of 3, words that sounded dramatic but turned out to be painfully accurate. The young girl spinning under harsh lights in border town clubs was already learning how survival and performance were tangled together. And in 1935, at just 16 years old, Margarita Cancino's life took a sharp, irreversible turn. During a performance at the glamorous Agua Caliente Casino in Mexico, Winfield Sheehan, vice president of Fox Film Corporation, happened to be in the audience. He wasn't easily impressed, but something about the shy teenager's movement, control, and presence made him take notice. It wasn't loud or flashy. It was natural. A screen test followed soon after, setting off the chain reaction that would slowly erase Margarita Cancino and replace her with Rita Hayworth. The transition into Hollywood wasn't instant or glamorous. Her early film work showed a young woman crippled by shyness, struggling to make eye contact with co-stars and barely speaking between takes. Yet the camera saw something different. On film, she appeared almost otherworldly, soft, luminous, and magnetic, even when she felt completely uncomfortable inside her own skin. Fox signed her to a contract, but it wasn't until her move to Columbia Pictures in 1937 that the transformation became intense and unforgiving. Studio head Harry Cohn didn't see a finished star. He saw raw material. And once Cohn decided to mold someone, nothing was left untouched. The changes came fast and without mercy. Margarita Carmen Cancino became Rita Hayworth, borrowing her mother's maiden name to distance herself from her Hispanic identity. Her naturally dark hair was dyed a vivid auburn that would later become legendary. But the most brutal step came with the electrolysis. Week after week, Rita endured hours of electrical treatments to raise her naturally low hairline, a feature deemed too ethnic for a Hollywood leading lady. The process dragged on for more than a year. Every session was painful, draining, and humiliating. What emerged wasn't just a new look, it was a deliberate reshaping of her identity. Hollywood didn't adjust to Rita Hayworth. Rita Hayworth was adjusted to Hollywood. Cohn's control didn't stop at her appearance. He monitored her friendships, dictated her public behavior, and interfered in her personal relationships. Rita had escaped her father's dominance only to land under the iron grip of the studio system. Her quiet, reserved personality was pushed aside, replaced with the sultry image Columbia wanted the public to see. And yet something powerful happened under that pressure. By 1939, Rita's supporting roles were stealing attention from lead actors. Audiences couldn't look away. Her real breakthrough arrived in 1940 with The Strawberry Blonde, where her carefully crafted screen persona finally clicked with the public. When she was paired with Fred Astaire in You Were Never Lovelier, everything came together. Her natural dancing ability, the one gift forged through years of relentless training, became her greatest weapon. What once symbolized survival now fueled stardom. Rita Hayworth had arrived, even if the woman beneath the image was still fighting to exist. The transformation reached its final unforgettable form with Gilda in 1946, the film that permanently sealed Rita Hayworth into the public imagination. That legendary moment, when she rose slowly into frame wearing a satin gown, her auburn hair catching the light as it flew effortlessly, wasn't just a scene, it was a statement. In seconds, Columbia Pictures delivered everything they had engineered for years: controlled sensuality, elegance, confidence, and a beauty that felt almost unreal. That single hair toss became Hollywood mythology. It defined screen sexuality for an entire generation and turned Rita Hayworth into a symbol larger than life. The image was flawless, powerful, and endlessly replayed. But it wasn't the full story. Because beneath the glossy surface, traces of Margarita Cancino still lingered. Those who watched closely noticed the small things: the way Rita avoided direct eye contact in interviews, the long pauses before answering simple questions, the quiet stiffness when the cameras weren't rolling. The shy teenager shaped by exploitation in border town casinos hadn't vanished. She had simply learned how to hide. Only now the exploitation came wrapped in prestige, contracts, and worldwide fame. The cost was higher, and the consequences far more public. By 1949, the headlines read like a fantasy. Hollywood's reigning love goddess was marrying real-life royalty. Rita Hayworth's marriage to Prince Ali Khan transformed her overnight from movie star to princess. Thousands of fans lined the streets of Cannes just to witness the spectacle, convinced they were watching the ultimate version of the American dream unfold. The romance began like a scene straight out of a film. A chance meeting on the French Riviera, a charming prince with endless confidence, and a whirlwind courtship filled with champagne-soaked parties and midnight flights to Paris. For Rita, still emotionally worn down from her failed marriage to Orson Welles, the prince's attention felt like escape, a way out of Hollywood's relentless pressure. But fairy tales don't survive reality for long. Ali Khan's reputation for chasing women didn't disappear after the wedding. Rita found herself trapped in an unfamiliar world of aristocratic expectations, expected to perform yet another role, this time without a script, without control, and without an audience that truly understood her. The birth of their daughter, Princess Yasmin, in December 1949, brought a brief sense of stability. For a moment, it looked like Rita had finally found peace. But by 1951, the illusion collapsed. She returned to Nevada and filed for divorce, setting off a brutal and very public custody battle. Religion became a central point of conflict, with Rita fighting to maintain control over her daughter's upbringing. The press, once obsessed with the glamour of her royal marriage, now tore into every painful detail of the split. Rita's image shifted overnight, from glamorous princess to embattled mother trying to protect her child from a world she didn't trust. Returning to Hollywood offered no relief. Columbia Pictures, especially Harry Cohn, expected her to snap right back into her role as their top sex symbol. But Rita wasn't the same woman anymore. She was tougher, more defiant, and no longer willing to quietly comply. She clashed with the studio over scripts, pay, and creative control. Suspensions followed, legal battles piled up, and the drinking she had long used to cope became harder to hide. 2 more marriages followed, each one exposing how vulnerable she had become. Singer Dick Haymes, whom she married in 1953, was facing serious legal and financial trouble and appeared to see Rita as a lifeline. Their short marriage was marked by public arguments, debt, and chaos. Her final marriage to film producer James Hill in 1958 proved no safer. Hill reportedly used Rita's name to secure business deals while undermining her confidence behind closed doors. The love goddess, once worshipped by millions, now found herself surrounded by people who saw her not as a person, but as a resource. These years marked a quiet but alarming shift. Rita Hayworth began struggling with something no one could yet name. On set, she increasingly forgot her lines, repeating takes that once came effortlessly. During the filming of Separate Tables, her behavior unsettled cast and crew alike. What many dismissed as alcohol use or temperament issues was actually something far more serious, the first visible signs of an illness already taking hold of her mind. The truth wouldn't come out for decades. By the end of the 1950s, the woman who once commanded the modern equivalent of millions per film, whose image had famously adorned the first atomic bomb, was now fighting for supporting roles. Margarita Cancino had been reshaped into Rita Hayworth, and now she was being reshaped again, this time by forces no studio could control. As the 1960s arrived, new challenges emerged. Hollywood was changing, and aging actresses were quietly pushed aside. In an industry obsessed with youth and perfection, time showed no mercy. For Rita, this decade marked the beginning of a devastating descent, one that would strip away not just her career, but her sense of self. The woman once frozen in myth was slowly fading, like a damaged film reel. The signs were there, but no one understood what they were seeing. On set, Rita stumbled over dialogue that once lived effortlessly in her memory. Her hands trembled during takes. Her famous elegance faltered at unexpected moments. Directors who once competed to cast her now whispered behind closed doors, labeling her difficult or unreliable. What they couldn't see was the truth. This wasn't arrogance, age, or excess. Something far more insidious was tightening its grip. By 1972, after completing her final film, The Wrath of God, Rita withdrew almost entirely from public life. Away from cameras, her struggles intensified. She missed appointments, got lost in familiar neighborhoods. Sometimes she failed to recognize people who had known her for decades. The press, as always, rushed to judgment, speculating about alcoholism, breakdowns, and scandal. Few imagined that one of Hollywood's brightest legends was already in the early stages of Alzheimer's disease, an illness barely understood at the time and almost never discussed. The diagnosis didn't arrive until 1980, nearly a decade too late. When it finally came, it brought both clarity and heartbreak. Princess Yasmin, Rita's daughter with Prince Ali Khan, became her mother's fiercest defender. At last, there was a name for what had been slowly stealing Rita away. The public announcement of her illness shocked the world and shifted how Alzheimer's was perceived, pulling a misunderstood disease out of the shadows and into the national conversation. Rita's final years were spent under her daughter's care, far removed from Hollywood's chaos and glare. The woman once worshipped by millions now lived quietly, her world narrowing to the walls of her Manhattan apartment. Fame, glamour, and headlines disappeared, replaced by routine, patience, and love. Even as her memories faded, her cultural impact did not. On May 14, 1987, Rita Hayworth died at the age of 68. She spent her final years held in the grip of an illness that stripped away nearly everything except her dignity. Princess Yasmin ensured her mother's story would serve a purpose beyond tragedy. She became a leading advocate for Alzheimer's awareness and research, transforming Rita's suffering into action. The Rita Hayworth Gala, created in her honor, has raised millions for the Alzheimer's Association, giving hope to families facing the same painful journey. Rita Hayworth's life defied the typical Hollywood rise and fall story. From exploited child performer to manufactured screen goddess, from global icon to misunderstood patient, her story traced an arc as dramatic as any role she ever played. Perhaps her most powerful role was the one she never chose, becoming the public face of a disease the world preferred not to see. The shy dancer who became a legend, who married princes but never found lasting peace, who captivated millions yet faded in quiet isolation, left behind more than 61 films. In life and in death, Rita Hayworth continued to illuminate the fragile, painful, and deeply human cost of fame, proving that even the brightest stars are still vulnerable to the dark.